Alright guys, so in this video we're going to be taking a look at MLB stadiums that look very similar, just certain features of stadiums that I think are the same. I'm sure I missed a few, so if you guys have any others, you can go ahead and say in the comments, but just from my observations. Also, we're going to include NFL as well, just different stadiums that look identical, but we will be starting with Truist Park and Busch Stadium. So I think both of these upper deck designs are basically the same. They're not exactly the same with the way they kind of wrap around, but overall, it's kind of like a two-layered approach with the upper layer kind of having the little concourse thing, if you guys can see that, on each of them. So I just think both of them look the same. This upper deck style is so good. It is the new thing, the new trend that MLB stadiums are doing with the smaller upper decks. Truist Park, the second newest MLB stadium, and Busch Stadium, kind of like the first one to really go with a smaller, almost split upper deck. It's like a split upper deck, but it's not at the same time because it's together, but I like the design overall. What we really want to do is limit the wall of seating, and to me, these two upper decks are very similar. They almost look identical. Next, it's going to be the upper decks of Bank of America Stadium and Arrowhead Stadium. A lot of people might not know this, but just looking at them, you can kind of see the middle of the upper deck, you know, very big, lot of rows, and then it kind of curves off on the sides where the end zones are. This is a lot more distinct with Arrowhead. Arrowhead has a lot more of a cool design. And that's why it's thought of as kind of almost a legendary stadium in the NFL, or at least it's reaching that point. You know, I haven't seen any plans to get a new stadium, even though that one is relatively old. And then Bank of America, they've got to do something with that. It's like the worst version of it. I mean, you can kind of see it curves in, but not very much. It's basically just two giant walls of seats. That's all it is. It's completely out of date, but those are kind of similar in my opinion. Next, it is the upper deck design of Tropicana Field and Kauffman Stadium. So both of these upper decks kind of jolt up. They've got a ton of rows, and then it's like they cave in together at almost, I want to say, like a 45-degree angle on each side. So you're talking about like a wall of seats, and then it gets smaller and smaller. Each section gets smaller and smaller. It's kind of hard to tell with the upper deck at the Trop just because of the way it's designed with the roof right up against it. But it has a ton of rows. The one main difference, it's almost like it jolts up and then back down at the Trop compared to Kauffman Stadium, where it starts really high and then gets lower and lower. I don't really mind the Kauffman Stadium upper deck design, but it is severely outdated, and they are actually looking to move into a new stadium there. The Royals are by 2026. And then this next one, it is the old Globe Life Park and Busch Stadium, the center field green patch batter's eye, basically the exact same design. I think this is a very clean design. It's a lot better than going with, let's say, you know, what T-Mobile Park has, which is just a giant black ugly wall. I believe Oriole Park at Camden Yards has the same thing. Go with the green patch. It makes your stadium look better. It is funny, like the whole green patch thing just randomly in the middle. Like, newer baseball fans don't really know what that's for. They just think it's kind of odd. Like, why is there no seating there? They really don't understand the batter's eye. And then also another interesting thing with the old Globe Life Park, which, in my opinion, like, I don't know how much it would have cost to put a roof onto it, make it a retractable roof, because obviously that's needed in Texas. I mean, that's a fatal flaw of this ballpark. It's why they had to move. I thought it was a really good ballpark. Maybe the left field upper deck is a little dated. I don't think they would have that much seating in a modern park, but I love the right field grandstand. And also they have those offices out in center field. So those offices in center field kind of remind me of, it's not identical, but it does remind me of the hotel at Rogers Center. But those are more like offices with balconies that no one really ever talked about. I believe they're mainly team offices out there, but there is like very few photos online of the actual interior of them. But that kind of design where, you know, there's an interesting like living space in center field, that really only exists, I would say, at the old Rangers ballpark, Globe Life Park, and then also Rogers Center. So that's kind of identical as well. And then, listen, I mean, this is too easy. You know, the cookie cutter stadiums, the multi-purpose stadiums in the 80s, I mean, they're all built the exact same. They all have the massive upper deck ring. They're all meant to be multi-purpose stadiums now. We know at this point the fatal flaw with the multi-purpose stadium. Yes, it'll save you money. You don't have to build two stadiums, but you're getting both a bad, compromised NFL stadium and you're getting a bad, compromised MLB stadium. Both of them are terrible because it's multi-purpose. You have to factor in seating for both MLB and NFL use, and MLB especially gets the short end of the stick because you're dealing with capacity of like 75,000. Those are never going to be filled. MLB teams have like 81 home games. You know, you're just not going to fill, you're not going to get that much of a crowd for most of your home games, so the upper decks just end up being wastelands, and then just the design of the upper decks is completely ridiculous. They're just way too massive. I mean, Veterans Stadium was probably the worst. It was just ridiculous. Also, I found this photo. Here it is. I think this is the Astrodome when they tried to grow grass. I mean, no, dude, I literally just searched I searched like donut stadiums or cookie cutter stadiums just to kind of get an image for this video, and I found this and I thought people would like it. I look at the grass, it looks like a beach. They tried to grow grass inside because of the natural light. Let me tell you something about the Astrodome. It did have a roof that was ahead of its time. The roof was ahead of its time. The technology, you know, the natural light being let in, you've got to give it up to the Astrodome. The Astrodome is still somehow not knocked down, but the interior is completely hollowed out, and they got to knock that thing down. It's sad. People were actually talking about the Astrodome when the men's basketball championship was happening because it was at NRG Stadium, and apparently NRG is like right across the street from the Astrodome or something, and then more identical stadiums. So this is Michigan Stadium. You can see the overall design. It is just one giant bowl with zero upper deck, and then I would say that's comparable to Lambeau Field before the renovation. Now, I give Lambeau Field a lot of credit for renovating and for adding those decks, but before they had those decks, it's basically identical to Michigan Stadium, and it's also basically identical to Notre Dame Stadium as well, with just kind of that massive lower bowl, old design look to it. Next, you do have Chase Field. So this is the overall center field batter's eye scoreboard. I completely hate this design, and there are rumors that both Chase Field and American Family Field, who both have these designs where you have the batter's eye, which is just a black wall, and then you have a massive scoreboard. It is basically a vertical wall spanning like 80 or 90 feet high. The main issue with this, when there's a home run that gets hit to center field, it just bangs off the scoreboard and back onto the field. It is just completely tacky. That should not be happening at an MLB stadium. It is a fatal flaw. My hope is that American Family Field can actually rescue their stadium. They're talking about maybe a $300 million renovation similar to the type of, you know, redesign that the Rogers Center got. Maybe they move the scoreboard over a little bit to right. You can take out a few of those seats. You can completely redesign the center field batter's eye. You can maybe add more, well, actually, I'm not even sure you can add seats into left field because that's where the bullpens are, but you need to open it up a little bit more, in my opinion. Having the scoreboard right smack dab in the middle, it can work sometimes in MLB stadiums, but rarely. Normally, it is a very ugly look, and it is a fatal flaw at Chase Field and American Family Field. And then this is, okay, so this is interesting. These are two of the super stadiums in the NFL, and I just think the interior design, the seating design is very similar. So it is US Bank Stadium, the Minnesota Vikings home stadium, and then it is the Atlanta Falcons Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm just talking about the upper deck, the way it kind of goes all the way around, and then it opens to a window. The lower bowls, to me, it's just very similar, the way it's designed. Now, these stadiums, the exterior of them, the roof, you know, one of them's retractable. We know the Atlanta Falcons Stadium has the cool futuristic roof that's kind of a sphere. You know, obviously that's not the same. I'm just talking about the interior seating design strikes me as very similar overall to where it kind of opens up on the one side. This is Allegiant Stadium, the new Vegas super stadium for the NFL. And I'm kind of pulling maybe this isn't legit, but if you take a look at the upper deck design, just look at the way the bowls are designed. You've got a big lower deck and you've got a massive upper deck. It is not like SoFi at all. SoFi went a lot smaller with each section. They went more of a tiered look with smaller upper decks, as opposed to Allegiant going with the massive upper deck. And then look at it compared to the new Tennessee Titans Stadium that's getting built along with the roof. To me, just the upper deck design to where you've got a lower deck, you've got a very small club section that goes around, and then you've got a big upper deck. I think that's a very similar design, the new Titans Stadium to Allegiant Stadium. I see maybe the same architects doing those, although maybe not, I don't know. It just looked very similar to me. This is Highmark Stadium, so this is the current Bills home. You can see just how small it is with a very small upper deck that doesn't go around at all. Not big. And then I would compare that and say that looks pretty close to TIAA Bank Stadium, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars home stadium. They need a massive upgrade, and they know it. They might be dumping almost $500 million into a stadium upgrade, or maybe they'll just get a new one. But we do know the Bills are getting a new stadium. Jacksonville needs one. Both of the upper decks are very small. Neither of them go around, and the lower bowls are also pretty small, so I thought those stadiums looked pretty similar as well. This is the overall suite design, I would say, when it comes to Soldier Field. You can see it's basically 3 rows of suites on one side, and then there's like virtually no suites anywhere else, all in a line. This is at a few different stadiums this phenomenon is happening. You can see Ford Field. I think it fits better at Ford Field. Maybe it has to do with Ford Field having a roof, but like the idea of stacking suites on top of each other on one side, I mean, that's like 4 decks of suites right there. And then the press box above it at Ford Field. And then you also have that design at Levi Stadium as well, where all the suites are it almost looks like its own building because there's so many suites stacked together on the one side. So I would say that is another similar feature of a stadium, but I'm sure I did miss some. I just wanted to go over some interesting features that are very similar. The other one that I'll quickly mention, it is the lower bowl design. When you look at Chase Field and Comerica Park, the way the lower bowl is designed to where it's kind of an angle, and the angle goes out and more seating reveals at each section. If you guys, it's like, I would say almost a 50-degree angle, maybe a 55. I mean, I don't have my, what is that thing called? A protractor? Is that what you use to do the things? I mean, guys, I don't know. I haven't been in school in so long. I don't even care. But it's like the angle, you can tell the angle is very similar on those two in terms of the lower outfield seating. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to that. So those are just some identical looking features of stadiums. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.